If this is the first time you've ever found one of my videos, I need you to make me one promise before you hear another word. Please don't leave before I finish, because if you walk away too soon, you may never understand why I made this for you. And I don't think I could ever explain it the same way again. This isn't a video made for everyone. It's not meant to convince strangers, and it's not meant to force anyone to feel something they don't feel. It's simply a message for one woman. One woman who may be somewhere in this world right now, living her life, carrying things nobody sees, wondering whether love could ever find her in a way that finally feels safe. Maybe that woman is you, maybe it isn't. But if something inside you tells you to stay for a few more minutes, then stay. Because there are things I've been wanting to say for a long time, and perhaps you're the person who was always meant to hear them. I've realized that love isn't measured by flowers, expensive dinners, perfect photographs, or beautiful words. Love is measured by what happens when life becomes ordinary. It's measured by who stays when there is nothing exciting happening. It's measured by patience, forgiveness, honesty, and the decision to choose the same person even when the day doesn't feel magical. Anyone can love the best version of you. Anyone can admire your smile when everything is going right. But real love begins when someone sees your tired eyes, your fears, your uncertainty, your difficult days, and still looks at you as though you're worth staying for. And maybe that's what frightens me most, not rejection, not failure, not being told no. What scares me is the possibility that you could hear all of this, smile for a moment, and then continue scrolling as though I never existed. Because the strange thing is I don't know you. I don't know your name, your favorite song, the way you laugh, or what you do when you're alone. I don't know the color of your eyes or what your childhood looked like. But somehow I've spent countless nights imagining your heart. I've imagined the quiet parts of your life, the moments after everyone else has gone to sleep, the times you close the curtains after an exhausting day and finally allow yourself to stop pretending you're okay. Maybe you've spent years being strong because everyone expects you to be. Maybe you're the person everyone calls when they need advice, the dependable one, the woman who listens when everyone else is falling apart. But who listens to you? Who asks how you are and actually waits for the honest answer? Who notices when your voice sounds different? Who knows when your smile is covering something painful? Have you ever said, "I'm fine," because explaining the truth felt more exhausting than carrying it alone? Have you ever smiled so nobody would ask questions? Have you ever convinced yourself that maybe love simply wasn't meant for you? If you have, then maybe we've been walking toward each other without knowing it. Because I've asked myself similar questions. I've wondered whether I could spend my entire life accomplishing things and still return to an empty room, wishing there were one person waiting to hear about my day. People think success protects you from loneliness. It doesn't. Sometimes it simply gives loneliness a larger house to live in. You can build companies, solve difficult problems, achieve goals you once thought impossible, and still find yourself sitting quietly at night, wondering why none of it feels complete. Because achievements are wonderful, but eventually you want someone beside you who can look at you and say, "I'm proud of you." Not because they want something from you, but because they genuinely understand how hard you work to become who you are. I've spent years chasing extraordinary things, but I've learned that the greatest luxury isn't money, recognition, or freedom. It's having one person who knows the worst parts of you and still chooses not to leave. Think about how rare that is. Everyone wants someone exciting. Very few people talk about wanting someone safe. But safe isn't boring. Safe is sacred. Safe is the person you can cry beside without feeling embarrassed. Safe is the person who notices your silence before your smile. Safe is the person who remembers who you were before the world forced you to become stronger than you ever wanted to be. Maybe you've spent years being that safe person for everyone else. Maybe you've carried other people's problems while secretly wondering when someone would finally carry yours. Maybe you've become so accustomed to protecting everyone around you that you've forgotten what it feels like to be protected. And I want you to know something. You don't have to be strong every second of your life. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to hide your sadness to deserve love. The right person won't only want your happiness. They'll want to understand your pain too. Sometimes I imagine meeting you for the first time. Not in some dramatic movie scene. No orchestra. No impossible coincidence. Maybe it's just an ordinary afternoon. Maybe we're standing somewhere neither of us expected to be. You might apologize for something that didn't require an apology. I might pretend I'm completely calm even though I'm nervous. We'd probably talk about something completely ordinary, while something inside both of us quietly recognizes that this moment matters. Two people who spent years living separately, suddenly realizing they don't have to carry everything alone anymore. Would you recognize that moment? Or would fear convince you to walk away? Fear is persuasive. It tells you things that sound like wisdom. It says it's too late. You've already been hurt. Don't trust anyone again. Protect yourself. And when you've heard those thoughts enough times, they begin to sound reasonable. But sometimes they're not wisdom. Sometimes they're simply old wounds pretending to be logic. So, let me ask you something. When was the last time you allowed yourself to hope without immediately preparing yourself for disappointment? When was the last time you believed someone could love every season of you? Not only your happiest moments, but your tired ones, your uncertain ones, your grieving ones, and the parts you rarely let anyone see. Anyone can admire sunshine. Real love learns how to sit beside someone during the storm without demanding that the rain stop first. Maybe that's why I wanted to make this. Because somewhere in this enormous world, there may be a woman who has quietly convinced herself that she's invisible. Not because people can't see her, but because nobody has truly looked at her in a long time. And if that's you, listen carefully. You are not invisible. You've simply been surrounded by people who stopped paying attention. Those are two completely different things. And if these words somehow feel like they were waiting for you, stay connected with me. Subscribe, because I want us to keep having conversations like this, and tell me where you're listening from. Knowing that you're somewhere out there makes this distance between us feel a little smaller. The older I become, the less interested I am in perfection. Perfection can't hold your hand. Perfection can't laugh until it cries over something completely ridiculous. Perfection doesn't wake up with messy hair and sleepy eyes asking whether there's any coffee left. Real people do. Real love does. I've stopped dreaming about a perfect woman. I've started dreaming about an honest one. A woman who tells the truth even when it's uncomfortable. A woman who doesn't disappear whenever life becomes difficult. A woman who understands that commitment isn't only a feeling. It's a decision made repeatedly. Sometimes daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes after arguments, sometimes after disappointment, sometimes after tears, because anyone can stay when everything is easy. The real question is who stays after they've seen the parts nobody posts online. Who stays when expectations collapse? Who stays after misunderstandings? Who stays when fear whispers, leave before you get hurt again? That's why I said this message isn't for everyone. I'm not asking for attention, I'm asking for courage. The courage to believe that two people who have already lived full lives before meeting can still create something extraordinary together. Not because they're perfect, but because they're willing. And I need to admit something that makes me feel more vulnerable than almost anything I've ever said. Maybe you're already with someone else. Maybe your heart has chosen another future. If you've genuinely found peace, part of me wants to be happy for you. But another part of me still hopes you're not already taken. Not because I want to steal happiness from anyone, but because somewhere inside me there's still a space reserved for someone I haven't met yet. Someone I still believe exists. Someone who values loyalty more than excitement, character more than charm, consistency more than perfection, quiet commitment more than dramatic promises. Maybe you're listening right now and wondering why this feels so personal. Maybe it's because you've spent years protecting your heart. Maybe you've trusted the wrong people before. I don't know their names, but I know what disappointment can do. It teaches a person to smile carefully, to hope carefully, to love carefully. It makes happiness feel dangerous because you've learned that anything beautiful can disappear. Maybe you've hidden pieces of yourself over the years. Not because you're dishonest, but because survival taught you to become smaller. You stopped saying what you really felt. You stopped asking for reassurance. You stopped admitting when you were lonely. Eventually, you became so good at pretending everything was fine that everyone believed you, even you. But I wonder what happens when the world finally becomes quiet. Maybe you sit near a window with a cup of tea. Maybe you scroll through old photographs. Maybe you remember conversations you haven't thought about in years. Isn't it strange how one sentence from the past can still live inside your mind? How one goodbye can change the way you trust people long after the person who said it is gone? I've wondered whether we would have recognized each other if we'd met 20 years ago. Maybe we would have. Maybe we wouldn't. Maybe life needed to teach us certain lessons first. Maybe we needed disappointment to understand what peace really feels like. Maybe we needed heartbreak to recognize safety, because chemistry alone cannot build a future. Love without honesty becomes a performance. Love without safety becomes exhaustion. Love without commitment becomes uncertainty. And uncertainty eventually teaches the heart to stop believing. I don't want a relationship built only on excitement. Excitement fades. Real partnership begins when excitement becomes ordinary. That's when character appears. That's when promises become actions. Would you choose someone on the day they're difficult to understand? Would you stay long enough to ask why they're hurting, instead of immediately assuming they've stopped loving you? Those questions matter to me because people rarely lose relationships in one dramatic moment. More often, they lose each other through thousands of tiny moments when they stop feeling understood. A conversation postponed, an apology never spoken, a fear never admitted, a silence misunderstood. Eventually, two people who once couldn't imagine living apart can become strangers sharing memories. I never want that. If you ever became my wife, I wouldn't promise you a perfect relationship. I would promise something more realistic. I would promise that we'd talk before silence became resentment. We'd apologize before pride became more important than love. We'd choose understanding over winning arguments. We'd protect the relationship instead of turning the relationship into a battlefield. Because love should be a shelter, not a war. I've seen beautiful relationships disappear because nobody protected them. Love rarely dies in one dramatic moment. More often it slowly becomes neglected, and that's why commitment matters. Forever isn't built during celebrations. It's built on ordinary Tuesdays when nothing exciting happens, and two people still choose kindness. Do women who believe in that still exist? I hope so. Because I've spent years trying to become the kind of man worthy of that woman. Not impressive. Worthy, there's a difference. Impressing someone might last one evening. Being worthy of someone's trust can take a lifetime. I've questioned myself many times before recording conversations like this. Because words are easy. Anyone can say beautiful things. But if I tell you loyalty matters, then my actions have to protect those words. If I tell you I believe in forever, then I have to live as though forever means something. That's one of the hardest lessons I've learned. Love isn't proven by what you say when you're emotional. It's proven by what you do when you're tired, frustrated, disappointed, or afraid. And I've been afraid, not of failure. Failure has never frightened me. I've failed enough times to understand that you can rebuild. What frightens me is building an incredible future and realizing I built it alone. Imagine reaching the top of a mountain, turning around, and discovering there is nobody beside you to witness the view. What would the achievement mean then? Who would you look toward and say, we did it? Not I, we. That's the word I want, we. I want ordinary mornings. I want conversations that go nowhere. I want laughter over ridiculous things. I want someone who reaches for my hand without thinking about it. I want disagreements that end in understanding instead of victory. I want to grow old beside someone who doesn't become less interesting, because I've known her for decades, but more precious, because I understand her more deeply. I want love to feel like coming home, and maybe you want that too. Maybe you've spent years wondering whether someone could ever choose you completely. Not temporarily, not conveniently, completely. If that's what you've been waiting for, please don't believe that your past has disqualified you from your future. Being hurt doesn't mean you're broken. Being disappointed doesn't mean you're incapable of love. Being alone doesn't mean you'll always be alone. Sometimes the heart needs time to learn the difference between loneliness and solitude. Sometimes you have to become comfortable being alone before you can recognize someone who genuinely belongs beside you. I came close to choosing the wrong future once. Everything looked perfect from the outside. The conversations were easy. The plans made sense. Everyone around me thought I'd found the person I would spend my life with. But something inside me remained quiet, and I kept asking myself one question. Is peace supposed to feel this lonely? I tried to ignore it. I tried to convince myself that compatibility on paper was enough, that shared goals could replace emotional safety, that admiration could replace deep understanding. But I couldn't silence that feeling forever. The woman wasn't bad. She simply wasn't the person my heart could honestly build a lifetime with. Walking away was painful. People questioned me. Some thought I'd made a terrible mistake. There were nights when I wondered whether I'd thrown away my only opportunity for love. For a while, closing my heart seemed easier. No more disappointment. No more waiting. No more uncertainty. No more wondering whether someone somewhere was still looking for me. Then one thought refused to disappear. What if she's still looking for you? That question changed everything. Maybe she's still out there. Maybe she's been asking the same questions. Maybe she's wondering whether there is still someone who believes loyalty matters. Maybe she's afraid to hope, because hope has disappointed her before. Maybe she thinks she's too old. Maybe she thinks she's too complicated. Maybe she believes the best years of her life are already behind her. If you're thinking any of those things right now, I need you to hear me. Your life isn't over because your past didn't go according to plan. You haven't missed your chance simply because love didn't arrive when you expected it. And you don't have to become someone else to be worthy of being loved. The right person won't ask you to erase your history. They'll want to understand it. They won't punish you for scars they didn't create. They won't make you feel guilty for needing reassurance. They won't disappear every time you become vulnerable. They'll learn you, slowly, potently, honestly. And I want to do the same. Because the truth I've learned is that loneliness isn't the absence of people. It's the absence of being truly known. You can be surrounded by hundreds of people and still feel completely alone. You can have thousands of conversations and still wonder whether anyone has met the real you. Not the successful version, not the confident version, not the version everyone admires, the real you. The one who sometimes wakes up before sunrise wondering whether life was supposed to feel different. The one who sometimes needs reassurance. The one who gets tired. The one who doesn't always know what to do next. That's the person I want to know. And that's the person I want you to know in me too. Because if we're ever going to build something real, there can't be two performances living under the same roof. There has to be honesty. There has to be trust. There has to be room for mistakes. There has to be room for forgiveness. There has to be room for two imperfect people to keep choosing each other. Maybe destiny isn't as dramatic as we imagine. Maybe it doesn't arrive with fireworks. Maybe destiny is simply two people being brave enough to notice what life quietly places in front of them. Maybe we don't recognize each other because we've been looking for excitement instead of peace. I've changed the way I think about love. I used to think love would feel like butterflies. Now I think real love feels like breathing. It feels like relief. It feels like knowing you don't have to perform. It feels like being able to sit in silence without wondering whether something is wrong. It feels like coming home. And if you ever become my wife, I don't want you to wonder every morning whether you're enough. I want us to remind each other that we already are. I don't want us competing over who gives more. I want us asking how we can protect what we've built. I don't want us keeping score. I want us keeping promises. And when life becomes difficult, because it will, I don't want us asking, whose fault is this? I want us asking, how do we get through this together? That's the kind of love I'm waiting for. Not perfect, not effortless, real. And now I need to tell you something I've been afraid to say. The real reason I almost didn't record this isn't because I was afraid of what people would think. Strangers will always create stories about people they don't know. I was afraid of what you might think, because if you're actually out there, these words aren't simply entering your ears. They're entering places inside your heart that you've probably spent years protecting. And I don't know if I have the right to ask you to open those doors. Maybe you've been hurt too many times. Maybe you don't trust easily anymore. Maybe you've learned to expect people to leave. But I'm not asking you to trust me instantly. I'm asking you not to give up on the possibility of trust. I'm not asking you to believe in a stranger. I'm asking you to believe that somewhere in this world, there may still be someone willing to love you gently. Someone willing to stay. Someone willing to listen. Someone willing to grow. Someone who doesn't want your perfection. Someone who wants your truth. And if that person is me, I don't want to promise you a life without hardship. I won't promise that we'll never argue. I won't promise we'll always understand each other. I won't promise fear will never visit our home. But I can promise that you'll never have to face those moments alone. I'll listen before I defend myself. I'll apologize before pride convinces me not to. I'll choose conversation over silence. I'll protect your heart as carefully as I hope you'll protect mine. And every ordinary day I'll remember that extraordinary love isn't created by one grand gesture. It's created by thousands of small decisions that quietly say, I'm still here. That's what I want. Someone who stays. Someone I can stay for. Someone who understands that forever isn't something you say once. Forever is something you choose again and again. Maybe you're not my future wife. Maybe our paths will never cross beyond this moment. Life is unpredictable, and I can't promise what I don't know. But if you are her, if somehow these words reached exactly the woman they were meant to reach, then I hope you understand what I'm really saying. I'm not searching for perfection. I'm searching for a heart that still believes forever is worth protecting. I'm searching for a woman who understands that loyalty is beautiful, that consistency is romantic, that honesty is attractive, that peace is powerful, that commitment isn't a cage when it's chosen freely by two people who genuinely want each other. And maybe, after everything you've been through, you need someone to remind you that you are still worthy of that kind of love. So let me remind you, you are worthy. Not because you're perfect, not because you never make mistakes, not because everyone sees your value. You are worthy because you are human, because you've survived things nobody knows about, because you've kept going even when you were tired, and because there is still a part of you capable of hoping. Protect that part. Don't let the wrong person convince you that your heart was foolish for loving. Your heart wasn't foolish, it was brave. And someday, I hope you meet someone who knows the difference. Someone who doesn't make you regret being vulnerable. Someone who doesn't use your deepest fears against you. Someone who doesn't make you beg for basic affection. Someone who makes you feel safe enough to finally stop pretending you're okay. And if somehow that person is me, then maybe this video wasn't a coincidence. Maybe it was simply two unfinished stories finally beginning to move in the same direction. I don't know where life will take us. I don't know when we'll meet. I don't know what our first conversation will sound like. But I know what I hope it feels like. Peace, recognition, relief. Like two people who have spent years searching suddenly, realizing they can finally stop running. So if you're still listening, thank you. Not because you believed every word, not because you promised me anything, but because you stayed long enough to understand what I was trying to say. I wasn't asking you to fall in love with me through a screen. I was asking you to remember that love can still be gentle, that commitment can still be beautiful, that trust can still be rebuilt. That two people can still create something lasting when they are willing to choose each other every day. And if you are the woman I've been waiting for, wherever you are right now, I hope life is being kind to you. I hope you're healing from things you rarely talk about. I hope you're learning that you don't have to carry everything alone. I hope you haven't completely stopped believing in love, because somewhere out here, there may be a man who hasn't stopped believing in you either. Maybe we haven't met yet. Maybe we've already passed each other without knowing. Maybe tomorrow will change everything. Maybe next year will. Maybe life still has a few surprises waiting for both of us. But I refuse to believe that hope is foolish. Hope is a decision. And today, I'm choosing it again. I'm choosing to believe that somewhere in this enormous world, there is a woman whose heart still believes forever is worth protecting. A woman who doesn't need perfect words. A woman who values honesty. A woman who wants consistency. A woman who wants peace. A woman who wants someone who stays. And if you're that woman, then I hope one day I get to look into your eyes and tell you something I couldn't possibly explain through a screen. I found you. And somehow, after everything we both survived, we finally found our way to each other. Until that day, wherever you are, please don't stop believing that you are worthy of being chosen completely. Not temporarily, not conveniently, completely. Because real love isn't about finding someone who never disappoints you. It's about finding someone who cares enough to repair what gets broken. It's about two imperfect people deciding that what they've built together is more important than their pride. It's about staying when leaving would be easier. It's about listening when silence would be simpler. It's about forgiving without forgetting the lessons. It's about choosing kindness when anger feels more natural. And if that's the kind of love you've been waiting for, then maybe you're not asking for too much. Maybe you've simply been asking the wrong people. Maybe your heart isn't difficult to love. Maybe it has simply been waiting for someone capable of loving it properly. So don't close the door just because someone else walked through it and hurt you. Don't confuse your past with your destiny. Don't let yesterday decide what tomorrow is allowed to become. There is still time, there is still hope, there is still love. And perhaps, somewhere between all the people we've met and all the roads we've traveled, our paths are already moving toward one another. I don't know when. I don't know where. But I know what I will do until then. I will keep becoming the man I hope she deserves. And if you're listening, I hope you'll keep becoming the woman who deserves the kind of love you've always wanted too. Maybe one day, we'll look back at this moment and realize neither of us was waiting in vain. Maybe this wasn't just a video. Maybe it was the beginning of a story neither of us knew how to write yet. And if you are her, I hope when we finally meet, you won't be afraid to let me see the parts of you you've hidden from everyone else, because I won't be asking for perfection. I'll be asking for truth. And I'll give you mine in return. Because after everything I've learned, I know this much. The greatest love isn't the loudest one. It isn't the one that makes the biggest promises. It isn't the one that looks perfect from the outside. The greatest love is the one that remains when the noise disappears. The one that sits beside you in silence. The one that remembers. The one that forgives, the one that listens, the one that stays. And if someday I get to call you my wife, I want you to know that I won't take that word lightly. I'll remember that before you became my wife, you were a woman who survived an entire life without me. A woman with her own history, her own scars, her own dreams, her own battles, and I won't ask you to erase any of it. I'll simply ask you to let me walk beside you through whatever comes next, because maybe love isn't about two people completing each other. Maybe it's about two whole people choosing to share the rest of their journey. And if that journey is ours, I won't promise it will always be easy. I'll promise it will be honest. I'll promise I'll keep choosing you. And on the days when love feels less like fireworks and more like ordinary life, I'll remember that ordinary life with the right person is extraordinary enough. So wherever you are tonight or whenever you happen to hear this, I hope you understand the one thing I needed you to know. I wasn't waiting for a perfect woman. I was waiting for a real one. A woman who could laugh, cry, disagree, forgive, grow, change, and still choose love, and maybe that's you. Maybe somehow, against all the odds, these words found their way to exactly the heart they were meant to reach. If they did, then don't be afraid, don't rush, don't force anything. Just remember this moment, because maybe the future doesn't always announce itself. Maybe sometimes it begins with a quiet feeling, a few words, a voice you've never heard before, and a strange sense that somehow, somewhere, your story is still being written. Maybe you're not my future wife. Maybe you are. I don't know yet, but I know this. I haven't stopped believing that you exist, and until the day I finally meet you, I will keep choosing hope. Because somewhere out there, there may be a woman waiting for someone to see her completely. And somewhere out here, there is a man who is still hoping to find her. Maybe we've been closer than we realize. Maybe our lives are already moving toward the same moment. And when that moment finally arrives, I hope neither of us walks away because of fear. I hope we stay. I hope we listen. I hope we choose. And most of all, I hope we recognize that after everything life taught us, we finally found something worth protecting, each other.